Well, Dr. Wade, I feel like you've been through a lot on your personal journey, and it has turned on many avenues of investigation and really researching for yourself. And you know so much. So I'm excited for you to share not only your story, but the valuable lessons that you've learned in, researching on your own and the things you came across that we can share with the public so that they have access to these resources and even know that they have another option when they choose their healthcare.
I'm happy to share today, especially if it helps people gain more faith in the process and more understanding of their body and health. Because one of the things I love is health independence. And what I see missing in today's societal narrative, the story that's being told in the mainstream news and media and propaganda is that you require outside help and that health is an outside job and someone else is responsible for it, and nothing's further from the truth. Where
So
would you
where is
like me?
health coming from?
Well, health is an inside job, number one. It comes by way of our body's ability to adapt to its environment, which means there's a life force and intelligence on board directing. And to me, it's more than energy. It's actually intelligence, which is guided, directed energy with a purpose. So intelligence has a direction of expression. What do I mean? Universal laws is that are you in I'll put it really simple, is that the body in the nervous system, and you know this as a fellow colleague, but somewhere in the grand scheme of things, the message isn't being like equated or made pragmatic or practical. But if our body is so smart and we are intelligent by nature within the system, it knows its role is to express health given its circumstances and its ever adapting, changing environment. Well, then, if we start to open up to that universal intelligence, that all knowingness that directs our cells animation, then tapping in to the brilliance means we are more capable than we're being told and conditioned to believe. And every day I get to see that with my patients. I get to show them in a mirror how brilliant they are and they fight it. Isn't that fascinating how they sometimes fight their own brilliance? And I joke with them and say, see, I'm here to show you you're right. And they're like, what do you mean I'm right? I mean that you're worth getting balanced so you can see how brilliant you are at healing. And they're like, oh, no, 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 I'm not that. I'm not. No, come on. You're doing all the work. I'm like, no, no, no. The only reason what I do works is because you have a vital force in you.
Mm-hmm.
And that vital force animates your cells. And if I can influence those cellular animations by way of freeing up distortions in that system, freeing up any interferences, freeing up any static in the lines, then your body has unlimited potential at what it's tapping into universally. So this is a story I think is missing because then we can start to talk about how different facets, because I work a lot with nutrition, and when we get into a chiropractic arena, sometimes that's not considered straight or that's not chiropractic. Well, I would say it's not chiropractic, just like vaccines aren't a chiropractic topic, but chiropractic is one of the only professions that deals with the awareness of toxicity from the outside, limiting the body's expression and ability to adapt to the world. That's why it's a chiropractic conversation in chiropractic offices, because we're actually addressing physical, chemical vaccines, problems with our food, water, air, drugs, and emotional stress. We deal with those three, as you know, but bringing that to people means making it relatable. So what you're saying is the water I'm not drinking can be causing stress to my body and therefore pushing the kidneys and my detox pathways. That's exactly what I'm saying. So if I just drink more water, yes, but your water needs to be healthy water, clear water, pure water. And if you are purifying water, well, now you're taking minerals out that would normally be found in a healthy well water or stream water that we would find in nature. So there's so many different,
It's always a dance, isn't it?
it's a dance. It is a dance, isn't it? I mean, it literally is a dance. And
Mhm.
the hard part is people wanting to just have a cookbook and say, just tell me. I think of Dr. Lona's book, which is awesome. Just tell me what to do, right? Her first book. And correct me if I'm wrong, that was the title.
Just tell me where to start.
Just
But
tell me where to start. Okay, so that's even better because that's what she needed, like where to start. And then she was responsible. She was accountable. She was going to make that happen.
mhm.
Our patients, very, again, distinctly different than that title. So is tell me what to do. Well, I can tell you what to do so far, but eventually you're going to want to make shifts in the what to accommodate your current status. Like,
Mhm.
where are you in the context of the story? Which is why I'm not a fan of blanket recommendations and generalizations.
All right. So I'm here today with Dr. Wade, and he is a wealth of knowledge of he knows so much about nutrition, chiropractic, but really philosophy and philosophy of life. And I love listening to him as he can go on and on about the adjustment and how the patient is the one doing the healing. So I love learning from you, Dr. Wade, and I'm really excited to have you here. Um, as we start to have this conversation about what is health and healing, I'm really interested in your journey and what led you to chiropractic and what has also been like your pivotal moment in your own health and well-being that has, turned you to look into some of these things with a different lens.
Well, I started out, I'm a big family. I'm number six of seven kids. My mom used to work for a medical doctor. Somewhere in the grand scheme of things, it was Eisenhower's brother, from what I understand, out in Washington State, who was a medical doctor. So as a result, he was a conservative type general physician back in the day who would look for alternatives or holistic health first, drugs last. She kind of got that experience with him. They moved back to Wisconsin, had six other babies, me being the second to the last, and I have a younger brother. And so when I was two, started having ear infections, three, very chronic, four, they were ready to put tubes in my ears. We'd tried drops, antibiotic periodically where it was. And then it was, hey, let's put tubes in his ears. My mom said, that doesn't seem like a solution. That seems like an appeasement. So she's like, I'm going to go see my chiropractor, who was a toughness chiropractor, Dr. Fernandez in Wisconsin Rapids, and who was a descendant of the toughness technique. He's a great nephew of Ian Toughness, who's a Logan grad and developed the toughness technique, which is no longer allowed in the state, which is a shame. That's a whole nother topic. But the technique was effective. And there was literally no cracking and popping, but he adjusted me. And it was the only thing that made a difference in my ear infections. And they didn't just clear up, they went away. And then he mentioned to my mom, he probably has a dairy allergy. Now, I didn't have lactose intolerance, but what it turned out to be is when pasteurization occurs in our dairy products, in other words, they high heat kill everything. You're killing the enzymes that actually would digest the meat, or I'm sorry, in this case, the milk, the protein. So, and then casein was getting denaturized by the pasteurization process. So now it's an almost unrecognizable protein because it's in a state where let's just say it's more challenging to break down. Okay. And so then I was recruiting my immune system, which is valuable information to those who don't realize the role digestion plays in our borrowing effect. That borrowing effect, now I know clinically, and where I had my own personal challenges, was a little nagging intuitive antagonist, which turned out to be a protagonist until I listened, it was an antagonist. But when I listened, I started to realize, and this was my wife because she had some challenges. And again, this is, 15, 12 years into practice. But I'm going forward just to share this point is that I realized and learned that enzymes are natural in the body. We get them from food as well, but we also create our own. But the role they played was completely oblivious to me for many reasons because we were never taught that in chiropractic school. So
So here you are, a chiropractor, and you're just now starting to understand like what the enzymes do in the body and how everything recruits, how important the immune system is. Tell
yeah,
us, for the listeners that haven't even been through a 4-year or 8-year chiropractic education, like fast forward for them, like really what is the impact that the digestive system has on the immune system?
okay. So we have a scenario, and this is under normal healthy physiology. And you'll hear me say normal healthy physiology. It's not being talked about in medicine because that's not their goal. That's my goal. I have become a physiology enhancer, or I'm being creative here, but the point is my goal is to restore healthy physiology that supports our ability to adapt. So to me, nutrition supports chiropractic, and chiropractic supports our ability to digest and optimize the fuel coming in if it's fuel, right? So we have a system in our body, and it's natural. Dr. Howell discovered this years ago, as did other researchers, and that is that we have a response to food and various types of food, whether that be raw and all the way to cooked, canned, and highly salted. And they discovered a process called digestive leukocytosis. Have you heard of it?
No, this is all new to me.
This is what's fascinating. Digestive leukocytosis is the recruitment of white blood cell rising upon eating food. Okay, so you have a natural response to have a white blood cell elevation when you digest food. Now, you could look at this any number of ways, but I'll pick two easy ways to relate this. You consume food, your white blood cell count is either preparing for other things that might come in with the food, which could be pathogenic, or let's just say annoying. Let's say annoying to the body, where it might need to be weakened or killed, whatever it might be, virus, bacteria, bugs, funguses, whatever it might be. Okay, so that's one option. Option two is that your immune system is there also as a backup to help break down that food that you're not breaking down. So digestive leukocytosis, all you need to know is that's an immune response by way of what you just ate. So if it's more raw, there's a lower leukocytosis, or a white blood cell in the bloodstream is what leukocytosis is. There's less of an elevation in those white blood cells. The more it's cooked, the more white blood cell count goes up. And the more the meat has been preserved, it equates as a toxic exposure in the digestive system.
And what's that mean for the body?
That means you're wasting, you're unnecessarily using your immune response to digest food when you need it for defensive mechanisms.
Yeah.
We could sit here and go over the fact that maybe it's not, there is no such thing as an immune system. It's just what we call it. We can get into semantics. Instead of that and needing to be right, I would say we're endowed by the divine spark with the ability to recognize stressful things in our environment. And we have a response mechanism that is designed brilliantly beyond our fathom and our measure to meet those demands. And you're going to hear me reference demand supply relationship, just like a business, every single day, all the time with the body, because in my story, I was losing the demand supply ratio. Okay. And that's where our patients are. They're literally either meeting the demand with their supply, or they're not meeting demand because they have less supply. And I can share with you what that means symptomatically and how that shows up. So with me, ear infections, I was having an immune response to food. It was taxing my body. I'd get adjusted. It would clear out. My body would heal. But if I continued to consume a stressful thing over time, I'd get sinus problems, and it'd be like, where's this come from? Well, that's a quote unquote viral response or a cold, or you have sinusitis, we're going to give you this drug, or you have allergies and we're going to give you these drugs. Well, fortunately, my mom said, no, we're not going to give him those meds. And he doesn't have asthma. And I didn't. I had a response that was giving me symptoms. And my mom, thankful, was stubborn enough to say, that doesn't sound like a solution. That sounds like you're going to cover it up. So I started getting conditioned.
So many families could benefit from hearing this because we are in a society where we're just masking the symptoms and we're putting a pill or a potion on top of it to just act like it's not there. But then as the problems continue, they continue in different manifests, right? And show up differently. Your mom was so wise.
Yeah. And you know what? She was a stubborn in a way. I mean, she was German, and we joke. I mean, she had 7 kids. 7 kids back then was, I mean, it was different. She was raised on a farm. She had a bigger family as well, not quite 7, but they were literally raised to help on the farm. And that's when kids were had to support the family farm life. And they worked. She literally pulled a plow, literally pulled a plow. So, um, fast forward, that was my first introduction to chiropractic. I had a great response. I kind of knew what I wanted to be right there. And I feel like I didn't necessarily choose it, but I also was different. Like, kind of wanted to not do what everyone else did. And I don't know how else to describe it other than I felt like a black sheep maybe in my family, as well as kind of with what I chose. And yet I don't think I necessarily chose it because I tried to do other things. And it just kept coming back where chiropractic was what I was supposed to be doing. I tried to avoid going to school long term, and I was looking for a way out. It's like, no, you're not getting out of this. So, and then I tore my shoulder in high school, was going to need surgery for that. Couldn't squeeze a baseball, and that's what I was playing and dove for ball, tore my shoulder up, and struggled with that for a bit. And then finally, my mom's, they wanted to do surgery, so she said, no, we're going to the chiropractor. And I had the audacity after all my previous experience, through adolescence, and now I'm a teenager. And I said, what do you mean? We need to see a real doc. So I should have gotten cuffed right there, but I didn't. Took me to the chiropractor. And when I left, I shook his hand. I could squeeze a baseball. After 6 weeks, that couldn't happen. Boom. I healed from that. And it was just one thing after another and then in chiropractic school, getting hammered on by my students, as you can remember, kind of maligned by way of trying to be aligned as we were learning, which is part of the process. And I would go home and get cleaned up just like that. And another re-exacerbation of the shoulder injury. And he was adjusting my upper back, never touched my shoulder. And all of a sudden, it's moving. So over and over, I got to see and experience chiropractic work, which built my faith in the process as well. And I'm not here saying chiropractic cures everything. None of us do that know exactly what chiropractic is. We are literally helping the body heal itself, and by way of understanding how the body works and using the body's energy and intelligence. So then I met my wife, and she went to Indiana. I stayed up here in Wisconsin, and we got together, got engaged, and got married in 1996. And then, so now it's been 30 years with her, and we both practice together. She does methylation work and was also Loomis trained, and she was trained in Loomis first. So one of our good colleagues, Dr. Brian Wasso, was Loomis trained and certified. And I took Dr. Heather to him where she was struggling with some low back issues because she had low back issues. That's how she got into chiropractic and would have required surgery, but never needed it. And he tested her and recommended some enzymes. And I'm like, okay, cool. And I watched how much better she did. And I learned something there, but I was still doing my thing chiropractically, just straight chiropractic work. And just adjusting like no other modalities in her office or anything. And so that worked well for a while until my wife just kept poking me. And she's like, because I was teaching for Activator at the time, and then I was teaching at Palmer, and I'm still running my practice. I'm just doing that for their electives until we got that course on campus as in part of their curriculum, which was a big goal. And it was a goal because the students wanted it for so long. Like my classes were over the top, and I had to keep getting docs to help support my class that was getting bigger, bigger, bigger in a waiting list that I didn't want to have a waiting list. I wanted to always let more in, but that required me to have more help. So in light of that, she kept poking me to get Loomis certified and then fine tune a protocol that combined not only that, but made it systematic where docs who didn't have the time to spend on all that that system that wasn't like very tight, very clean, very efficient. Efficient's the word I'm looking for. So with my volume and the size of my practice, I didn't need more things to do. But I couldn't unlearn what I learned to now help patients in another way. Well, in 2018, I brought on a successor, and the successor model versus associate is you give them everything, like proprietary knowledge, and you take them up for a faster start, faster development, but ultimately to succeed this practice and then turn that over. So it's a little different focus than hiring associate, giving them part things. For those of you who have associates, sorry for saying that, but there is a different model. It's a different model that actually supports all the information, and it's more of a commitment. The commitment is it's a long-term commitment by way of, I want you to have this practice and I want you to carry on this legacy. So her goal was develop this because I know you can, because that was my thing, was to clean things up and systematize them. But also I was very results oriented. It had to work or I'm not wasting my time doing it. I don't want to waste patients' time doing it. So apparently the good Lord had something in store for me. And I've always been pretty fit and body style and what I work with, and I didn't have a lot of pain in my life. But I've been adjusted since I was 3, so thank God. But my successor stress, because I gave up everything. I used to play singles tennis and compete, and I stopped all of it to train my successor and invest time. So it was very stressful at the time, and that relationship ended up going. He decided he wasn't going to practice and then left and still never practiced to date. He's does something else. So it was his blessing, and at the same time, it moved my dial. I just didn't know what was in store. And then I get diagnosed January of 2019 with thyroid cancer because I noticed a lump on my thyroid when I was shaving. I'm like, that's weird. That's not good. So I took a little bit before I told my wife, and I did. And we're like, yeah, we need to get it checked out. I didn't have hypothyroidism. I didn't have hyperthyroidism. I didn't have pain. And I didn't look any different. So we go get it tested, and 95% of the time it's benign, and nodules are directly related percentage-wise. There is a direct relationship between age and the percentage risk you have, okay? Or likely, let me rephrase that, likelihood that you have nodules. So if you're how old, Amanda? You don't have to say it, but that's the percentage of likelihood you have thyroid nodules. You have a 31% chance of, if that were the case. Currently 54% chance I have thyroid nodules. Okay, it's direct. 77 years old, 77% chance. So think about it as your likelihood of toxicity over time that the thyroid's been dealing with, creating glandular stress, and the body's responding in such a way. But 95% of the time, they're benign. Okay, so I fell into the 5%. Number one, I wouldn't do a biopsy again because that spreads things. 2, I wouldn't smash a gland like a breast gland whenever possible because that spread things. They had their aggressive approach here, but I chose to go holistic. So I went and traveled in 2019. Every 2 weeks, I was out in Oregon, the state of, getting care and detoxifying. And that I probably did that 6 to 7 weeks over a 12 to 14 week period. And I asked the reasonable question, how long do I go? Because I was having problems swallowing, and I had 2 episodes of anxiety that I've never experienced in my life because I was never anxious that way. I was in a tent with my nephew at my nephew's birthday. I was in my own tent. They were in their camper, and I was All of a sudden I had to get out. I like literally I had to fly out of my tent. It was the weirdest thing. I claustrophobic. I just had to get out. I felt enclosed. And I'd slept in that tent many times before, never had that issue. And then another time was uh, probably weeks later, I was getting on an airplane to go to Vancouver for a conference, and same thing. Now I look back and see what was going on. So I was having a hard time swallowing, and that was the concern about the size of the growth on the thyroid. Fast forward, I said, what's reasonable to do this holistic work before I have to go invasive, if that's even a possibility? And I said, how's 6 months? Is that realistic? Can I see change in 6 months? Should I expect that? What's fair? All my holistic providers said yes. Like, that's fair. That's really fair. So we did it. And it didn't shrink. There was a level of toxicity. I also discovered 2 years prior, I had a condition called hemochromatosis, which is an iron disorder and it's genetic. Therefore, my body does not have a turnoff mechanism, which those who are not hemochromes have a natural pathway that says stop absorbing iron. It's just a shutoff valve. So you absorb portions of your red meat iron, but not all. And mine just goes right in. There's no shutoff valve. So I absorb a good deal, and then it stays in the system, which was also a wild blessing in disguise. Back to the thyroid, when I got diagnosed, I knew it was the weirdest thing. Neither Heather or myself expected it. I was just like, hey, this is routine. They already said 95% of the time it's benign. We're just doing this by precautionary measures. And they're like, nope. Whoa, everything changed. If they just flipped their tune, we're going to start you with chemo and radiation right away. And it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. And I stopped and I walked out. She goes, he needs to be alone. And so I just walk out and I'm like, I knew the weirdest thing. I knew it was a gift. I had no idea why. I had no idea how. It's not like I knew that. I just knew I had been given a gift. And it was very calming, scary at the same time, but equally calming. Like, okay, what do I get to do with this?
Mm-hmm.
That changed everything for me, because now my attitude was, this is to help. This is to help me. Number one, if truly, if the universe is for me and not against me, then how could I see it any other way? I could fall prey, which many of our people do, many of our patients, and I'm not saying I'm anything exceptional, because I'm not. I just think I was tested by my belief set that if I truly believe the body's self-healing and self-regulating and has the capacity to heal and mend and express health if given the opportunity, then what else was I supposed to do? Was I supposed to not believe that, not own that, and live in fear and do everything out of fear? Because a fear response would have meant, behaviorally speaking, my actions speak louder than my words. And that I didn't truly embody health came from within. There's a level of fear that goes with those things because we are conditioned, and I was as well. But I had good people around me. I had people I could trust. I know that the knowledge I had prior, I had to be the patient, not try to fix me. So that was hard for me. You were overly kind by saying I'm a wealth of knowledge. I'm a student of the game, but I remain curious to date with all my patients. I have fun not having to know all the answers, and fun knowing that I don't. And I never will, but I'm a student and I'm curious, genuinely curious. Like, if there's a premise, the body's self-healing, and I actually live by that, then there's things I can learn, right? There's things I don't know that I can benefit from. So anyway, that was a big point for me that helped me stay on track and then actually tap into my resources and those around me.
Mm-hmm.
And there's equally as bad advice out there as well, by people knowing just enough, but to be dangerous. For example, with heavy metal toxicity, which discovered and found out to be it was iron, number one, and aluminum and mercury, which comes from where?
Vaccines.
Comes from vaccines. And I look back at my little baby booklet, which parents used to keep, and by number 6, usually the records weren't as good as number 1. For all you young moms and dads out there.
Yeah. Be careful what
Uh,
you do for your first one, right?
right. So, which is pretty natural, right? And so it said the Boston rash. I had a response to a vaccine in Boston rash, and then there was none after that. So thank God my mom saw that. She had a good relationship with the medical doctor that delivered all of us 7 kids, and she didn't get me vaccinated again. And so the beautiful thing there, thank God, is I have the ability to do some of the things I did. What's interesting about the hemochromatosis is my 6 other siblings and my parents and their parents. So I have the homozygous, which means I got genetic gifts from both my parents for hemochromatosis. So each of them had it, and each of them expressed health issues related to hemochromatosis. So the homozygous, both parents versus heterozygous, we do understand epigenetics and genetics, right? The environment bringing out the genetic expression. I was living healthfully. I ate pretty well, but not perfect. I did take care of myself with chiropractic, but it doesn't make up for a poor lifestyle or other conditions that sometimes have momentous changes, right?
Mhm.
And so when I first heard from a colleague that tested my blood for fatigue one time, I'd never had fatigue. I was taking an organic mineral supplement that had iron in it. Didn't know. We stopped it, and then I changed my diet temporarily. But neither of us really knew about hemochromatosis other than that it's rare and that I needed to give blood. And so he circled back 3 years later. So now it's 2017. And he said, "Hey, what'd you ever do with that high iron?" And I said, "Nothing. Why? I've been feeling better." He goes, "Well, he went to a seminar and it's like he circled back and said, you better do something about that because you could have this." So I did the genetic test. Sure enough, at the time it was like, you need to dump blood. Well, I'm like, that doesn't sound like a great thing to do. I'll just clean it up with my diet and whatever. But anyway, then I learned. And so in my thyroid experience, I met Morley Robbins, and Morley is a world expert in iron overload and the imbalance metabolically with iron overload. And Mercola's father, Dr. Mercola's father, was in iron overload, and he was a hemochrome. There's some other professionals I know that you might know that are, which I won't expose. Mercola has, but the bottom line is iron overload's a big deal, and more people have it when they don't actually have hemochromatosis. There's a rare bunch of us, but that's 1 in 268 of Scandinavian European descent are hemochromes by way, which needs to learn how to manage that to prevent rust, because that's what's going on in the body is cumulative rust as a way, and that's by way of ROS, reactive oxygen species, by way of oxygen and iron creating rust in the body.
Mhm. Wow, that was so much information. Okay, so my question is like in the chaos and getting these diagnoses and learning more about your own body, like how do you still find a place of certainty and conviction in your chiropractic philosophy, but also just your life philosophy of like the intelligence within? Like like you said, you didn't fall victim to everything. Um, but how did you do that? How did you stay so convicted to your truth?
I'm challenged in it every day. I think we all are.
Mhm.
And there's no naked emperors. Meaning, do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah, that
Okay.
we're all being challenged.
Yeah, I mean the emperor wears no clothes. You can pretend that you're above dis hyphen ease before it becomes disease. You can linear look at life, which I was to some degree, equal to the task, which is if I eat healthy, if I exercise and I get adjusted, therefore I am. And
Mhm.
I was guilty of that. That is a part of the equation. That is a strong part of the equation. But I'm going to challenge the context of whom we're talking about. My wife, she has some celiac issues. She probably had gluten intolerance when she was a kid, but didn't know how to listen to that and what that meant. Had someone dealt with it then, she may not have had the acute appendectomy, again, which showed us brilliance along the way. And then she had that removed medically. They had no idea why she had leg pain because hers didn't manifest in the gut. It manifested in her neurology. So, I mean, curiously, you ask questions, but the same reason my core belief set was challenged is the same reason I could hang in there, right? I mean, I love philosophy, not for wasted use, because there is a practical application from which I think and see the world. That's why I could never be a medical doctor. It has zero to do with the fact that I would consider I couldn't get through school. I have the intellect to do that. It's because I do not see the world through a drug fixing a problem when that drug 9 out of 10 times was something taken from nature, tweaked in a lab, able to be patented, and now delivered as something incredible. There may be a lot of argument and objection to that, but that is a primary thing in Rockefeller medicine, petroleum-based healthcare in the industrialized machine. But then we will politicize healthcare
and make a profit.
Well, yeah, I mean, this isn't conspiracy. It's called observe the companies that bring dangerous things. As you know, our opioid program years ago was to bring awareness to other alternatives, which there are, and the families that brought opioids into the country and created the market knew the damage they would cause and still did it. So that's just one of the many episodes. And then you look at the top two, GlaxoSmithKline and I believe Merck, both the most fined, criminally found guilty, most fines paid out, and yet people are still doing what they say. I mean, that's fascinating. But now this can go a whole nother direction.
Right. Because then you even look at the vaccine industry where no one is held liable for all the things that happen post-injury of a vaccine.
How fair is that?
Right.
Right.
Ask the
It's
parents
completely
that
not
have
fair.
lived that life.
Right.
Yeah.
I think people are, unless there's holistic grassroots servants that are teaching foundations to health, people don't have the mainstream does not have a chance to ever experience health because the system is not about health. It's about entering the machine and they can't get out. Like they don't know what to do with you if you come in and you don't have symptoms. We do. Why? Because we're about objectifying. Like my technical strategy is to assess the body's functional adaptation to determine if it has the resources to adapt to the next thing or it's consuming everything just trying to survive. Because if we always talk about survival, we can never get to thrival. By the
I
way,
think a famous quote by you mentioning the doctor of the future. Do you remember that?
I'm going to dig, but I think I know what you're talking about. The doctor of the future is the patient.
Yes. Yes. That is one of your famous lines. I don't even know if you know that.
I don't know that.
Yeah.
That's funny that you
Mhm.
say that.
And I
What
think that's the beautiful approach of how you see the world and see the people on your table is everything's flowing above, down, inside out. And the patient is the one doing the healing, right?
they're the one doing it and they're the one that has to grasp that they're doing it. They have to be notified to stake claim to their role. And anytime I take that away from them, I've done a disservice to them. Now, for some of you, that might sound harsh. Not at all. It's self-love, both an awareness of my role and awareness of their role. And that is an equal relationship. That's two spheres that are the same size. I'm going to give you a little visual diagram. If I see them as a small circle and I'm a big circle, that's an egoic approach. A mother and a child is a big circle to a little circle, especially an infant, because he's requiring mom to know what he needs to get him to the next step, which is adulthood, right? Through his development. Then there's a point where you with your significant other, there's two spheres that are the same, and you come together and it's equal, and they overlap in the middle, right? They overlap, but they don't do this. Now I can't tell who's who because my identity is buried in my spouse. But here we both are independent and connected. And if I could connect these two and you could see it, it'd be like this. There's a crossing over in there, but it's not completely superimposed. So that's two big circles interacting in the world with their own identities, but they're together. It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have society where the government wants to be the big circle and we're the little circle, and they get to tell us what to do with our bodies and how to, and that we require their guidance and their direction and their mandates. And that is a violation of the laws of nature, that it doesn't even exist. It's statutorily code, a whole nother conversation. But that is a codified version of man's superimposition on top of our God-given rights, our endowed divine spark that was granted by the Spirit, not by man. My rights don't come from man, they come from Spirit, they come from God. That means healing. Does every patient need a lecture like this? Hell no. But what they do need is somebody who understands the role and can just communicate that by way of respect, consideration, and service. Not slave, service.
That's beautiful. As we start to wrap up this conversation, what is, one piece of advice for anyone listening that through your journey, through just your being here on earth, of like one takeaway that will leave the world a better place if someone else heard that message?
There's a level of humility. I joke about it with a patient. So I had to have my thyroid removed because of some of the growth and the fact that it was already fairly momentous. But I came out of that a different place. My wife was like, "Are you sure you want to do that?" I don't know if I would. I'd hang in there. But I wasn't swallowing well, and it would create that anxiety response. So our executive decision, me and my team, my close team, do what you got to do. Now, I encourage this for patients. I can give them my philosophy. I can share a viewpoint, but they get to make that decision, right? So humility is, I don't need to be right. I need to do right by myself, by being honest, integritous, and open where I see and how I see if I'm asked. So if I'm asked, and this is a little bit of human design, I'm a projector. I wait for the invitation, and then I get to share my perspective, and they can do what they want. But the invitation is what's important. So I also make sure that's established with my patients, where do they really want my opinion on this? Or are they considering chiropractic one-dimensional back pain, neck pain? And I'm over here saying, I can already see how good you can be by addressing these two areas with that. Would you like my help? And would you like an opinion? And if they say no, I'm still good helping them. Now I know, and we didn't waste any time. And if they are ready, they're like, "Oh my God, I never even thought of that." And we're ready. It's like my kid in me gets excited because they're ready to go next level, next level. Mm-hmm. So I have to fight some of that sometimes as I'm learning my style on another level, because I'm still fascinated by human behavior and how we respond under stress and agendas and pushing versus pulling, or guiding versus, shouldering versus just guiding and being supportive. But
I think we found our next conversation, because I know you love human design. So that's our next conversation, is what is human design and how do we tap into that?
Yeah, that'd be fun. That'd be fun because it's helped me. First of all, being vulnerable, like we talked about, I don't know if there's one thing I would say, because I came out of this knowing that I needed to learn more. Two, the same pain of needing to learn more was the gift to help people on a whole nother level. Once you see something, you may try to unsee it because the road is easier over there, you think. but I started just respecting everything that was laid down in front of me. Okay. Then came COVID and my presidency. And then it was Dr. Steve's like, you don't have to do this. You're just coming out. You don't have to do this. My wife was like, honey, you shouldn't do it. You don't have to do this. And I'm like, I just knew there's no way I'm not doing this. I am so ready for this. This is exactly what I need right now. And boom, there we were in it. And I had goals that I was going to do work on for the next 2 years to help evolve the association to their next level, like with organization and whatnot systems. None of that. I was being pulled over here to deal with COVID with our members, patients, our communities, the freedom talks we did, and then how that affected, like the trash mail I got, the hate mail I got from doctors, medical doctors, and dentists all around the United States, just like Lona did, Dr. Lona, for speaking out, and we were in the media as hurting the population, which is. And then you're doing right, but yet people still don't see that. So, I mean, the humility that comes out of all those things, having to heal, realizing you're not a machine like you think you are, or just because I have linear health and I am, and therefore, oh my God, this just ruined my ego. It's like, no, man, dude, this is the next thing, man. Enjoy it. If this is your life, put your money where your mouth is.
Mm-hmm. Well, you certainly are doing that. I believe that.
Well, you might be one of the few, but thank you.
Dr. Wade, thank you so much for this call and for sharing your story and wisdom, because I do believe you have so much wisdom to share. I'm just grateful to be able to interview you for this call.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it, Amanda. And I
Yeah.
appreciate everything you and Dr. Lona are doing and the role and the impact you're having in your community that is actually impacting other chiropractors and kids, soon to be more and more and more kids throughout the United States and hopefully world. So thanks for all you're doing.
Thank you.
You bet.